Only 2 lessons left in classical roots this year. Today we're going to be doing lesson 15, which is about shapes of things. You can follow along on page 92 of your workbook. And for this lesson, per usual, you're going to need your root card and the strategy you've chosen to complete for this week. Might be a good idea to switch it up. There are only 2 left, so you could try something new this time. We have quite a few roots that we're going to be learning that you'll need to add to your card. And then we have 9 total words for this lesson. The first root that we're learning today is circum, and it means around. Please add this root's definition to your root card. We're going to look at 3 different words that use this root, and the first is circuitous. This is an adjective, and it means roundabout or indirect. As you can see in the picture, the cars are kind of going around. They're not taking a direct route because of the placement of that statue. The sentence reads, instead of walking straight home, I took a more circuitous route. Don't forget to add this word to your vocab strategy. Feel free to find some other example sentences in your workbook. The one in your book on page 92 reads, driven off course by storms, some of the travelers had to take a circuitous journey around the Mediterranean Sea. Pause the video at any time, please, to take some more time to fill in your vocab strategy. But I'm going to move on to the second word, which is circumspect. Circumspect is an adjective. It's a describing word, and it means cautious and watchful or prudent. The sentence reads, you must be circumspect when deciding on which college to attend. In other words, you really must think about it, be cautious, weigh all your options. The sentence in your book reads, despite her mother's reminder to be circumspect on the way to her grandmother's house, Little Red Riding Hood reveals her destination to a friendly wolf. Again, it means cautious or watchful. And don't forget to add this to your vocab strategy as well. The third and final word we're going to learn that uses circum as a root is circumference. This is a word that you should definitely know from math class. The circumference is the outer boundary of a circle, the perimeter of a circle, which is shown in the image on the screen. It's a noun, it's a thing. It's the measurement around the circle. An ancient defensive wall still stands unbroken on the circumference of the French town, encircling its medieval city limits. A moat acts as the circumference of a castle. Notice in both those examples, this word is being used as a noun. The part of speech is an important component to consider, especially since on your quizzes you have to plug the words into sentences. So knowing how they're used can be really beneficial. We're going to move on to our next set of roots here. We actually have 2 roots, orbis and orbita, which mean very similar things. They're listed kind of together on your vocab root card. Orbis means circle or anything round, and orbita, very similar, means wheel. The words that we're going to learn that use these roots kind of use them interchangeably, which is why they're listed together on your root card and in your book. The first word, a word you've probably also heard in another subject, is orbit. This is kind of a science-y word, and it means path of one body as it revolves around another body. It can also mean a sphere of influence, a range of action or experience. No matter the definition, it will always be used as a noun in your sentence. In the sentence on the screen, it reads, it takes Pluto 248 years to orbit the sun, so to revolve around the sun, which is what the image shows on your screen. There's a sentence in your book that will help you to understand that second definition. The sentence reads, since the death of her husband, Martin Luther King Jr., the orbit of Mrs. Scott's influence has increased to make her one of America's most important women. So in this sentence, it's talking about the orbit of her influence. So it's the range of or action or experience that she's been able to basically make happen as a result of her husband's death. The other word that uses this root is very simply orb. Orb is also a noun, and it's a sphere, anything spherical really in shape. For example, a planet, an eye. It says here that some people place orbs around their garden that glow at night, which is seen in the picture. So really anything that's a sphere can also be called an orb, another noun here. Astronauts observe from outer space, and the Earth looks like a blue-green orb. Don't forget to add this word to your vocab strategy before moving on to our second to last root in this lesson, which is figura. The definition of this root is form or shape. Make sure you're adding this to your root card so you have a nice comprehensive list of all of your roots. We have one vocab quiz after this one, which will have all of the roots from the beginning of the year. So it's really important that your list on your root card is up to date. And again, figura means form or shape. There are two words we're going to learn that use this root. The first is configuration, another noun, a lot of nouns in this lesson, and it means a shape or outline, a method or arrangement. So in other words, in the group of Tetris, you have to change the configuration of blocks to fit them together. You have to change the way that they're arranged or the way that they're facing so that they can fit together. The sentence in your book reads, to encourage conversation, the students' chairs were arranged in configurations of 6 or 8. So again, the way that it's organized. Teachers at school have many different configurations of the tables or desks depending on the needs of the class. Don't forget to add this to your vocab strategy before continuing, but the next word, this is the 7th word in this lesson, that also uses figura as a root is figurative. Figurative is more of a language arts word. We use this a lot of times when we're talking about the language that's used in poetry or novels. It's an adjective and it means using figures of speech, symbolic, not real. If you think about when we talk about figures of speech, we talk about metaphors, similes, hyperboles. These are really types of speech that are not intended to be taken literally. So when we talk about literal language versus figurative language, those two are opposites. Literal is like very clear, straightforward, sometimes concrete. Figurative is more of that symbolic meaning. So similes and metaphors are examples of figurative language. And in your book it says, unless one has a fatal foot disease, the quote, my feet are killing me, end quote, is a figurative expression. In other words, someone's feet wouldn't really kill them. And the little comic here shows another example of figurative language being used. It says, wow, it's raining cats and dogs out there. And the cat and dog are confused because it's not actually literally really raining cats and dogs. A lot of cross-curricular words in today's lesson. Don't forget to add this to your vocab strategy before moving on to our final root, kuklos, which means wheel or circle. Now you'll notice all of these roots have to do with different shapes, and the definitions of the roots are very similar. Circum was a round, orbis was circle or anything round, so very similar to kuklos. Orbita was wheel, so again an overlapping definition with this root. And then the last one we learned, figura, was form or shape. So just make sure you're listing the distinctions between all of these. Two last words that use this root. The first is cyclic. This is an adjective, and it means occurring or moving in cycles. So cyclic means moving in cycles. It kind of makes sense because cycles and cyclic look very similar, so hopefully that'll help you to remember the definition. The sentence on your screen reads, in the northern part of Illinois, some cicadas have a cyclic emergence of 17 years, meaning every 17 years the cicadas emerge. It's occurring in a cycle. In your book it reads, because it moves around the sun in a cyclic pattern that takes approximately 76 years, the reappearance of Halley's Comet can be calculated precisely. Don't forget to add this word to your vocab strategy before moving on to our final word, which is encyclopedic. Obviously, this word looks very similar and sounds very similar to encyclopedia, which you probably know is a book that has a lot of information in it about different topics. So encyclopedic is actually the adjective form of encyclopedia, and it describes someone or something that possesses a lot of information about many subjects or intensively about one subject. The sentence on your screen reads, Johnny was revered for his encyclopedic knowledge of the history of the Chicago Bears. In your book it says, having lived in this town for 60 years, he has an encyclopedic resource for local history. Hopefully knowing the definition of encyclopedia will help you with this word. At this point, you should have 4 different roots as well as 9 different words from this lesson. If you have any questions, make sure you ask one of your teachers before the upcoming vocab quiz. But great news, after this one, there's only one more left this year. Thanks for listening.